Hey everybody. So today we want to look at the analog inputs produced by the optical reflective sensors on the SAMrIs, the one here and the one in the middle. Now these sensors are hooked up to the analog inputs of your SAMrI, and if we look at this chip right here, this is the Atmel Mega 328. That's the heart of your robot. We see PC0 is hooked up to the right sensor, and PC1 is hooked up to the left sensor. Two of the analog inputs on the port C. If you want to look at the actual schematic, you can see the sensors right over here. Now the sensors consist of two parts. They consist of a down-facing infrared sensor, which infrared transmitter, an LED that just shines downwards, and a photo detector here, a little photo transistor that is looking down at the reflection. And this photo transistor is hooked up to PC1, and the other one's hooked up to PC0, so you can see they're just going into the microprocessor. Now we want to program these things, so we have on our test mat a series of little grayscales here, so it's interesting for us to calibrate our sensors and find out what numbers trigger the sensor at these various grayscales, and that's what we're going to be doing in this exercise. So I'm going to go to the program, and here's the, I call it the Edge Sensor Calibration Program. Very simple. It's an extension of our little motor control program, but you can see we're starting off by including the SAMrI.h header. We're defining our motors, of course, as usual. We're hooking up the motors to port B, and then we're setting up four variables, four integer variables, one of them called left eye, one of them called right eye, and these are going to hold the magnitudes of whatever the sensor is receiving. We also have another variable called speed, which is the speed of the motors. We can slow that down if we want to go a little bit slower. And the last integer is set point. It's just a number we're going to use for a threshold between what's high and what's low. In the setup program, we're going to take our motor outputs and your motor variables and make them outputs. So our motor pins are all outputs. And we're going to set our two analog inputs as inputs. So PC0 and PC1, which are hooked up to the infrared LED, are inputs. Then a little 1 second delay, and into the main program. So here's the main program. First thing we do is we have the robot go forward, so it's on its way. Now, my particular sensors, when I looked at them, I found that the darkest line on my grayscales usually returned over 300 on the sensor. The B line on the grayscale there is about 41, and D was 37, and C was 35, and white I found was about 31 or less, right? So these are the values that I got for my sensors. Your sensors are going to be different because you have different characteristics. You may have different lighting in the room. Your sensors may be a little closer or further from the surface than mine are, so that's going to affect it as well. So what yours are going to be are maybe close to this, but not exactly the same. Next thing I do in the program is I take that variable left eye and load it up with what is being read from PC1. That'll be a number between 0 and 1023. And the right eye is going to get the input from analog PC0, which is the other sensor. I'm going to set my set point, and I want you to adjust yours up and down, but I'm going to set mine at 45 to see which grayscale that one would set for. So that'll be our threshold. Program is very simple. A little decision here. If the left eye reading is greater than that set point, 45, go backwards for a quarter second. And also, if the right eye is greater than the set point, go backwards for a quarter second. Okay, so this is all we're going to do. And then we're going to place the robot on the various scales, grayscales, and figure out which one is making it go forward, which one's making it go backwards. So let's just go ahead and have a look at the grayscale setup down here. There we go. So I'm going to turn the robot on. And if you notice that if we're on the white, the robot is going forward. The robot is going forward. If I put it on E, the robot is still going forward. If I put it on C, it's still going forward. And if I put it on, oh, that was B, I'm sorry, this is C. If I put it on C, now it's going backwards. So D is forwards, and C is backwards. So 45 must be somewhere between these two levels right here. Okay, and of course, B would totally make it go backwards, and A really makes it go backwards. Okay. And that's basically how the robot's going to work. So what I want you to do is go ahead and play with the set point 45, make it go higher, make it go lower, and see if you can figure out what numbers you would get for each of those grayscale values. And that'll help calibrate your sensor. It'll give you a really good idea how to make your sensor as accurate as possible. So look forward to seeing your work, and keep building.